Imagine this. I'm standing in a brightly lit showroom surrounded by gleaming furniture made from expensive imported wood, the kind that shines under halogen lights with a polished veneer that screams mass production. Right in front of me is Derek, my competitor, his face turning a deep crimson red with fury, resembling an overripe tomato ready to burst. He's waving his arms wildly, veins popping on his forehead, screaming at the top of his lungs. "You're stealing my clients, you pathetic eco-freak. I'll destroy you and everything you've built." His voice trembles with raw hysteria, eyes bulging as if he's about to explode from the pressure of his own rage. This was our first direct confrontation, and it instantly hooked my attention to just how far unchecked jealousy could drive a man. My name is Elijah, and I'm a simple craftsman from the rolling hills of Pennsylvania who has always loved working with wood, feeling its grain under my fingertips and breathing in that earthy scent. After years toiling away in noisy factories, surrounded by the hum of machines and the smell of industrial oils, I decided to strike out on my own and start my own business. My workshop, aptly named Green Oak, specialized in crafting furniture from recycled wood, sourced from old barns weathered by decades of rain and sun, demolished historic houses with stories etched in their beams, even salvaged pallets from forgotten warehouses. Each table or cabinet was a one-of-a-kind masterpiece. I would hand sand the surfaces meticulously to preserve the natural textures, knots, and imperfections that told a tale. Then apply eco-friendly varnishes made from natural resins without any harmful chemicals that could pollute the air or water. My first shop was modest, just 500 square feet tucked away in an industrial zone on the outskirts of Philadelphia, with secondhand tools bought at local auctions. A rusty table saw that I refurbished myself, a planer that whirred with a familiar rhythm, and shelves stacked high with pieces of oak, pine, and walnut rescued from landfills, each one inspected for quality before use. I was immensely proud of it. Clients ranging from young families setting up their first homes to elderly couples looking for heirloom pieces would come in, drawn by the personalized touch. "This isn't just furniture," I'd tell them with a warm smile. "It's history continuing, a second life for materials that others discarded." Business grew fast. In the first 6 months alone, I doubled my sales, drawing attention and loyalty from those who previously shopped exclusively at Derek's establishment, the owner of Imperial Furniture, a sprawling chain known for its traditional, mass-produced items that lack soul. Derek was the epitome of the classic arrogant tycoon, tall and imposing, always clad in expensive tailored suits that screamed old money, with a condescending manner that suggested the entire world owed him deference and success on a silver platter. He owned several shops scattered across the area, importing cheap wood from overseas suppliers without a second thought to the environmental toll. Deforestation in rainforests, carbon footprints from shipping. When my clients started switching allegiances to me, because my pieces were not only unique and sustainable, but also carried that authentic, handcrafted warmth, he couldn't handle the blow to his ego. His first tactic was simple yet insidious: spreading malicious rumors through the grapevine. I first heard about it from a trusted supplier during a routine pickup, who pulled me aside and confided that Derek had been calling up mutual clients, hissing lies like, "His wood is nothing but trash. It'll fall apart in a year from rot and poor quality. I've seen him scavenging from dumps, using rotten materials that could harbor pests." It was all a blatant fabrication, but it stung hard, like a betrayal from within the industry I loved. I didn't sit idle or let anger consume me. Instead, I immediately started gathering evidence with the discipline of a seasoned investigator. I recorded a detailed conversation with the supplier right there on my phone, with his explicit consent, of course, where he recounted Derek's call verbatim, including the timestamps and the aggressive tone. Then back at the shop, I meticulously photographed my entire wood stock, close-ups of each stack, labels showing certificates of origin from certified recycling companies, proving everything was clean, dry, and of premium quality. To bolster my case, I even sent representative samples to an independent laboratory for comprehensive testing on strength, durability, and eco-compliance, receiving back a sealed report with charts, data points, and official stamps affirming my standards. These documents became my first line of defense. I stored digital copies securely in the cloud, with encrypted backups and physical ones in a fireproof safe, complete with notarized duplicates for legal weight. The tone of my life shifted dramatically. From the warm pride in building a family business, I often imagined passing it down to my son, teaching him the art of woodworking, to a gnawing sense of siege, as if invisible walls were closing in. Clients began hesitating, some canceling consultations, and sales dropped a disheartening 20% in just weeks. But I held on tenaciously, countering the rumors with transparent facts posted on my social media channels, sharing lab reports and customer testimonials to rebuild trust. The scene shifted quickly, from the tense atmosphere of Derek's showroom, where the air was thick with his cologne and hostility, back to the comforting confines of my own shop, where I sat at my weathered workbench that evening, sanding a new table under a single hanging bulb. The scent of fresh wood shavings calmed my nerves, but intrusive thoughts of the uncertain future worried me deeply. I pictured worst-case scenarios, like shuttering the doors after all my sacrifices. Every grain in the wood under my rough fingers reminded me of the countless hours I'd invested, from sourcing materials at the crack of dawn in chilly salvage yards to delivering finished pieces late into the night under starry skies. My wife would bring me a steaming cup of coffee during those long hours, her encouraging words ringing in my ears. Elijah, your passion and integrity will win out in the end. But Derek's looming arrogance cast a long shadow over everything, making me wonder what low he'd stoop to next. As the days turned into weeks, I expanded my documentation efforts even further, compiling emails from satisfied clients detailing their positive experiences, creating before and after photo galleries of my creations to showcase transformation, and even keeping a daily journal of incidents for chronological proof. It was meticulous work, each file carefully labeled with precise dates, times, locations, and descriptive notes. This wasn't just about defense. It was about building an airtight case for justice, ensuring that if push came to shove, the truth would shine through. If this story resonates with you, subscribe to the channel to catch the next parts, and drop a comment below. What city are you watching from? Maybe Philadelphia, like me. I'm in my supplier's cramped office, surrounded by stacks of yellowed invoices and the faint smell of sawdust mixed with old coffee, holding a fresh pile of delivery slips in my hands. He, a nervous man in his 60s with graying hair tousled from constant worry, a worn flannel shirt tucked into faded jeans, whispers urgently, "Derek called me last night, screaming bloody murder that if I keep supplying you with materials, he'll tear up our long-standing contract and blackball me in the industry." He was absolutely hysterical, cursing like a sailor lost at sea. This was the second episode of escalation, sabotaging my supplies in a calculated move. Derek, completely blinded by his seething jealousy, had moved from mere words to tangible actions, trying to cut off my oxygen supply in the most literal sense for a woodworker like me who depended on reliable raw materials. My business relied heavily on steady, high-quality, recycled wood supplies to keep the wheels turning. I had built strong relationships with local recycling firms that provided an array of pieces from various construction sites, sturdy oak beams from 19th century farmhouses, complete with antique nail holes that added character and history, knotty pine boards salvaged from abandoned warehouses, their surfaces naturally weathered by years of exposure to the elements. Each incoming piece was checked meticulously for quality. I used my trusted digital hygrometer to measure moisture content, ensuring it stayed below 12% to prevent any future warping or cracking, and tested structural integrity with a small hydraulic press I had custom built in my early days. But suddenly the deliveries that had been clockwork reliable began to falter. Trucks that usually pulled up at 8 a.m. sharp were now hours late, or worse, didn't show up at all, leaving me scrambling. When shipments finally arrived, the materials were often damaged beyond use. Deep, deliberate-looking scratches marring what should have been pristine surfaces, unexplained cracks along the edges, as if someone had taken a hammer to them in transit. This disruption cost me a full week on one particularly high-profile order for a sophisticated couple from New York City who had commissioned a custom kitchen table from historic red oak, inlaid with intricate reclaimed brass accents that required precise, undamaged wood. I jumped on documentation right away, approaching it like a full-fledged detective case to protect my livelihood. First, I recorded the entire conversation with the supplier on my voice memo app during that very meeting. Tell me exactly what Derek said, word for word, including any specific threats. I'm recording this for potential legal purposes, and I have your permission, right? He nodded vigorously and recounted the threats in vivid detail. Derek had promised to ruin his business entirely, cancel all existing orders on the spot, and spread word to other vendors to isolate him if he didn't immediately stop working with me. The man's voice shook as he spoke, his hands fidgeting nervously with a ballpoint pen, clicking it open and closed. Then, without delay, I drove straight to the supplier's expansive warehouse, a vast, echoing space filled with towering stacks of lumber under rows of buzzing fluorescent lights that cast harsh shadows. There I photographed every single damaged batch in exhaustive detail, each board individually labeled with its lot numbers and delivery dates stamped clearly, close-up shots of the gouges, splits, and other anomalies from multiple angles to capture the extent. To strengthen my position, I even hired an independent inspector, a retired structural engineer armed with a clipboard, calipers, and a measuring tape, who compiled a comprehensive report after hours of examination. The damage patterns are highly inconsistent with normal transport wear and tear. There is clear evidence of intentional tampering, possibly with tools like chisels or mallets. I took all these proofs to a local notary public the next day, having them officially stamped and witnessed, while also attaching copies of our supply contracts with highlighted clauses about quality guarantees and breach penalties. The tone of my life grew markedly darker with each passing day. The feeling of siege intensified, as if invisible barriers were erected around my operations, squeezing tighter. I found myself waking up in the dead of night, staring at the bedroom ceiling in our modest two-story home, my mind racing with worries about piling unpaid bills, the looming mortgage payments on the shop, and how to explain the delays to anxious clients. My wife, ever the pillar of support, noticed the deepening worry lines etching across my forehead and would urge me gently to fight back smarter, not harder. But I refused to give up or let despair win. I proactively scouted and secured alternative suppliers from as far as California, ones specializing in certified recycled redwood from sustainably managed fallen giants in national forests, complete with traceability documentation. The scene changed swiftly from the supplier's cluttered office, where papers were scattered haphazardly on a scarred metal desk amid half-empty coffee mugs, to the familiar sanctuary of my own shop, where I carefully unpacked the new batch under bright overhead work lights, inspecting every single inch with a magnifying glass and my trained eye. The invigorating smell of fresh pine sap mixed with the ever-present sawdust in the air, and my calloused hands, roughened from decades of labor, trembled not just with simmering anger, but with a renewed determination to persevere. Yet Derek's unhinged hysteria showed no signs of abating. Instead, it spilled over into the online world with reckless abandon. He began commenting viciously and repeatedly on my social media posts, labeling me a trash scammer and eco-hypocrite in rambling diatribes. His own accounts were filled with ranting essays, overloaded with exclamation points, all-caps shouts, and inflammatory accusations. I made it a point to screenshot every single one of these outbursts, time-stamping them and adding them to my ever-growing digital file of evidence, knowing they could prove intent in court. I sensed that worse was on the horizon, but my burgeoning evidence folder was evolving into an impregnable fortress, ready for whatever came next. I'm hunched over my home office computer late at night, the room dimly lit by a single brass desk lamp, casting long, eerie shadows on the walls adorned with framed family photos and woodworking awards, when I notice a sudden flood of negative reviews cascading onto my Google business page. Furniture fell apart in a month. Total junk. Avoid this fraud at all costs. Dozens of them appeared overnight, all eerily similar in phrasing, structure, and timing, like a scripted attack. This marked episode 3, the onslaught of fake reviews and relentless online attacks. Derek had orchestrated this digital barrage, his arrogant rants finding a new amplified outlet in the virtual realm, as if his mounting hysteria had discovered a megaphone in pixels and algorithms. I had made it a habit to monitor my online presence diligently every day, checking platforms like Yelp, Facebook Business, Google My Business, and even niche local forums for woodworkers. Suddenly, one-star reviews poured in like an orchestrated thunderstorm, claiming everything from shoddy craftsmanship that allegedly led to collapses, fabricated late deliveries that I had records to disprove, to absurd health hazards from toxic recycled wood infested with hidden mold and chemicals. Real clients started calling me in droves, their voices laced with worry and confusion. One particularly loyal customer, a retired school teacher from the quiet suburbs, even canceled a substantial $5,000 order for a custom dining set after being swayed by the deluge. Derek's own social media accounts became a public spectacle of unchecked hysteria. Inflammatory posts screaming, "Beware of Green Oak, it's a total scam operation. Their so-called eco-claims are nothing but fake news designed to steal your money," accompanied by a barrage of exploding head emojis, thumbs-down icons, and hastily attached memes mocking sustainability. His arrogance radiated through every typo-ridden, rage-fueled tirade, as if he couldn't rein in his emotions even from behind the safety of a keyboard. Evidence collection remained my unwavering lifeline, and I tackled it with the precision of a forensic expert piecing together a complex puzzle. I captured high-resolution screenshots of every suspicious review without fail, meticulously noting the exact timestamps, user profiles, many of which were freshly created accounts with absolutely zero other activity, generic stock profile pictures or blank avatars. Where feasible and legal, I utilized the platform's built-in tools to trace IP addresses, discovering telling clusters originating from geographic ranges suspiciously close to Derek's main shop in the industrial outskirts of the city. I compiled all this into a detailed spreadsheet for easy reference. Columns for dates, full content excerpts, suspected origins, and cross-links to similar patterns. To counterbalance, I reached out personally to my genuine customers for supportive evidence, collecting sworn affidavits at a notary's office, where they described their positive experiences in depth, such as one stating, "Elijah's handcrafted oak table has withstood 2 cross-country moves, daily family dinners with rambunctious grandkids, and remains as solid as the day it was delivered after over 2 years." I systematically reported the fraudulent reviews to each platform, attaching my comprehensive evidence packets, and preserved their official confirmation emails of investigations and subsequent removals. Each one a hard-won victory, complete with time-stamped headers and case numbers. The disappointment deepened like a relentless gathering storm cloud. I felt truly besieged, my initial buoyant hope for a thriving, legacy-building business fading under the oppressive weight of these coordinated attacks. Nights stretched long and restless. I'd sit alone in my cozy home office, the soft glow of the computer screen illuminating my weary, furrowed face, surrounded by scattered sketches of future furniture, designs pinned haphazardly to a bulging corkboard. But the act of documenting everything transformed my sense of victimhood into a strategic empowerment. Each new file added felt like reinforcing a shield, turning passive defense into proactive armor. My teenage son, who often helped out after school with simple tasks like sweeping sawdust or organizing tools, would ask innocently, "Dad, why does this guy hate us so much?" I'd take the moment to explain the value of resilience and integrity, showing him the organized folders as tangible proof of fighting fair. The scene shifted abruptly to a more hopeful note. A customer meeting in my shop the very next day, with warm sunlight streaming through the dusty workshop windows, illuminating rows of polished wood samples on display shelves. An elderly couple shuffled in, their steps hesitant from the online misinformation they'd encountered. I greeted them warmly, showed them tangible examples of my work, and walked them through my meticulous process, from hand-selecting prime wood at foggy morning salvage yards to rigorous testing for durability using load-bearing simulations in my back room. By the end, they were convinced, placing a solid order, but the lingering damage was undeniable. Overall sales had dipped another 15%, forcing me to dip into our family savings to cover overheads. Derek's tactics were escalating with alarming relentlessness, his hysterical outbursts now evolving into public spectacles that could no longer be ignored. I steeled myself for the inevitable next phase. Outright legal harassment, confident that my accumulating trove of evidence would prove crucial in turning the tide. Acceleration hit hard and fast in episode 4, the dive into legal harassment. Imagine me seated in a stark, echoing courtroom, the wooden benches worn smooth from years of tense disputes and emotional testimonies, with Derek positioned across the narrow aisle, smirking with his trademark arrogance as his slick, high-paid lawyer dramatically files a frivolous lawsuit claiming I had brazenly stolen his proprietary furniture designs. This eco-nonsense you're peddling is just a cheap, underhanded copycat scheme to undercut real businesses, he hissed venomously during a tense hallway break outside the chambers, his voice escalating hysterically, veins bulging prominently on his sweat-glistened forehead as he jabbed a finger in my direction. The lawsuit papers arrived unceremoniously via certified mail at my shop one rainy afternoon, a thick, intimidating envelope stuffed with dense legalese alleging trademark infringement, unfair competition, and even baseless trade secret theft. Claims that were utterly ridiculous, given that my recycled styles stem from original, nature-inspired sketches I doodled in notebooks long before entering the market. Not his bland, cookie-cutter imports. The demands were outrageous. Cease all operations immediately or face exorbitant damages that could bankrupt a small operation like mine, tying up precious time and resources in endless paperwork and meetings. I had to pause production on several ongoing pieces, watching helplessly as half-finished chairs and tables gathered a fine layer of dust in the corner, their potential unrealized. I countered this assault aggressively, wielding evidence as both my sword and unbreachable shield. I hired a no-nonsense lawyer without delay, a sharp-minded, battle-hardened woman from downtown Philly with over 30 years of experience in business litigation, her office a organized maze of towering file cabinets, leather-bound legal tomes, and walls lined with framed victories. Together, we delved deep into my design archives, pulling out dated sketches from spiral-bound notebooks now yellowed with age, time-stamped digital files preserved from my early prototyping days in the garage, and high-resolution photographs of those initial prototypes, complete with metadata proving creation timelines. I had already recorded Derek's hysterical voicemail threats that poured in after the filing. Drop this pathetic charade right now, or I'll bury you under a mountain of court fees until you're bankrupt and begging. Captured crystal clear on my phone's recording app, transcribed verbatim with notations on tone and duration. We swiftly filed countersuits for defamation, intentional interference, and harassment, attaching my entire prior dossier as exhibits. The rumor-spreading recordings with audio waveforms analyzed for authenticity by a tech consultant, the damaged goods photographs enhanced with expert annotations on tampering methods, the fake review screenshots meticulously cross-referenced with IP address logs and platform responses. Every piece was legalized with utmost care. Affidavits sworn solemnly before a notary, court filings stamped, served via process server, and duplicates scanned into secure, encrypted cloud drives with version control. The tone of my ordeal shifted to one of obliged, gritty resilience. The siege felt like an endless war of attrition, constantly draining my physical and emotional energy. But the rigorous prep work sharpened my resolve like honing a dull blade to razor sharpness. Scenes flashed in quick, intense succession. Hours spent in my lawyer's cluttered office, poring over detailed timelines and strategy maps spread across a long conference table littered with empty coffee cups and highlighter marks. Then the courtroom itself, bathed in harsh, fluorescent lighting that highlighted every facial tic, where the presiding judge, a stern, silver-haired man draped in black robes, eyed Derek's disruptive outburst with increasing skepticism, even admonishing him multiple times for maintaining decorum in the hallowed space. As the pace quickened with each hearing, Derek's flimsy case began to unravel thread by thread under the weight of our irrefutable evidence barrage, his legal team scrambling desperately, but glaring holes appearing in their fabricated narratives. Yet his unyielding arrogance persisted like a bad habit. Undeterred, he upped the ante with thinly veiled physical intimidation tactics, sending chilling signals that the fight was far from resolved. In response, I bolstered my security measures around the shop and home, installing motion sensor lights and additional locks, all while knowing that my documentation protocols would capture and preserve whatever shadowy moves came next in this escalating saga. It's a late evening in the dimly lit alley behind my workshop, where long shadows stretch ominously from overflowing industrial dumpsters and parked delivery vans, when two burly guys in dark hoodies and jeans suddenly approach me as I fumble with the keys to lock up for the night. One of them, with a gravelly voice and a menacing glare, growls low, "Derek sends his regards. Back off your little green game, or things are going to get real rough around here, understand?" Their threats were subtle in wording, but unmistakable in intent, a direct echo of the increasingly hysterical voicemails I'd already archived from Derek himself, laced with profanity and rage. I'd anticipated some form of escalation after the courtroom dramas, so weeks prior, I had proactively installed a network of state-of-the-art security cameras, high-resolution models equipped with infrared night vision, motion-activated triggers, wide-angle lenses, and seamless integration to my smartphone, and a dedicated cloud server for instant alerts and redundant backups. That fateful night, the system performed flawlessly, capturing the entire encounter in the stunning clarity, their faces illuminated starkly by the flickering street lamp overhead, every word audible over the distant hum of city traffic and crickets, even the partial license plate of their idling getaway car parked at the alley's mouth. I didn't engage or provoke them. Instead, I retreated calmly back inside the shop, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest, barricaded the door, and dialed the police non-emergency line immediately, following up with a visit to the station to file a detailed incident report under the bright, interrogative glare of overhead lights. Documentation efforts ramped up to a feverish pitch. I treated the episode like preserving an active crime scene for future prosecution. I snapped immediate photos of the alley right after they left, capturing fresh footprints imprinted in the loose gravel, discarded cigarette butts that might yield DNA, and any other potential traces. The full camera logs were downloaded with precise timestamps, synced to atomic clocks for unimpeachable accuracy. The official police report became a cornerstone, a multi-page form complete with my sworn statement under penalty of perjury, the responding officer's badge numbers, and preliminary findings. I layered in the audio from Derek's escalating voicemails, where his voice cracked and rose with unbridled rage. "You'll regret ever crossing paths with me, you damn tree-hugger thief." Each one analyzed for embedded metadata to confirm origins and unaltered integrity. All of this material was rushed to the notary the very next morning, bound into my expanding series of binders, meticulously labeled by episode number, with cross-referenced indexes and table of contents for swift navigation. The tension heightened like a tightly coiled spring on the verge of release. I felt constantly watched and vulnerable, my eyes scanning every shadow during daily commutes or while walking the dog in our neighborhood. But amassing this evidence transformed raw fear into potent fuel for justice, reinforcing my commitment. Quick scene shifts played out in my mind. The sterile police station environment, with its fluorescent buzz, stale coffee stench, and clacking keyboards as I handed over USB drives loaded with footage. Then back home that same night, methodically double-checking every lock on doors and windows, gathering my family in the warmly lit living room for a serious pep talk about heightened safety protocols and emergency plans. Derek's growing desperation was palpable, his once polished hysterical tactics now veering dangerously close to real-world consequences that could backfire spectacularly. But true to form, he pushed even further, culminating in the botched vandalism attempt that would irrevocably change the dynamics of our conflict. As I'd long feared from the pattern of threats, Derek resorted to hiring two low-life vandals, shady characters with criminal records, as it later emerged, to infiltrate and trash my newly expanded shop. I just leased a larger adjacent space to accommodate the burgeoning demand, complete with fresh coats of paint on the walls, upgraded electrical wiring for heavy machinery, and state-of-the-art CNC machines humming efficiently amid organized workstations. But in a truly cosmic twist of fate, due to a simple yet fateful address mix-up, our shops were practically neighbors in the sprawling industrial park, with similar numbering and signage that could confuse in the dark. They mistakenly targeted Derek's own establishment instead. I was jolted awake in the dead of night by the piercing wail of emergency sirens echoing through the neighborhood. Red and blue lights flashing erratically through my bedroom curtains like a chaotic light show. Rushing to the scene in my pickup truck, pajamas hastily covered by a jacket, I arrived to a scene of utter devastation. Derek's once pristine workshop plunged into disarray, expensive imported equipment viciously smashed, industrial lathes overturned with bent spindles, precision saws shattered beyond repair, towering piles of exotic lumber splintered into useless fragments. A small but dangerous fire had erupted from containers of chemical solvents knocked over in the frenzy, sending thick black smoke billowing into the night sky as firefighters in heavy gear hosed it down relentlessly, the acrid, choking smell of burnt plastic and varnish stinging my nostrils and eyes. The vandals had fled into the shadows, leaving behind a trail of destruction estimated in the tens of thousands of dollars. The pivotal turning point came from an unexpected ally, a neighbor's independent security cameras mounted across the street, unaffiliated with either business but generously cooperative once approached. These had captured the prelude in high definition. Derek surreptitiously meeting the two thugs in a dimly lit parking lot earlier that evening, nervously handing over a thick envelope stuffed with cash, his whispers caught faintly but audibly on audio. Hit the eco shop next door hard, destroy every last piece of equipment, make it look like an accident. Their critical mistake in addresses was glaringly evident from the footage timestamps, aligning perfectly with the timeline of the incident and fire department arrival. I secured this bombshell evidence legally and with lightning speed, obtaining the neighbor's written permission for use, then subpoenaing the full unedited high-definition video files through official police channels to maintain chain of custody. The comprehensive fire department reports detailed the arson elements with forensic precision, including color photos of the charred remains and chemical analysis. Supplemental witness statements from on-site responders and passers-by noted the deliberate nature of the sabotage, with tool marks matching common burglary implements. All of it was documented with exhaustive thoroughness. Videos backed up in multiple secure locations, with hash verifications, reports notarized and witnessed, seamlessly integrated into my master evidence file, complete with detailed chain of custody logs to ensure courtroom admissibility. From the depths of despair, the tone pivoted sharply to a glimmering turning point of hope. I could feel the oppressive tide of siege finally shifting as irrefutable truth began to emerge from the ashes. Scenes flashed rapidly in succession. The smoldering site at the break of dawn, with faint embers still glowing amid the twisted ruins under a gray sky, then transitioning to a sterile police interview room where I confidently handed over thick evidence packets under the watchful eyes of detectives, my voice steady as I narrated the connections. This spectacular blunder not only exposed gaping cracks in Derek's crumbling empire, but also set the stage for the ultimate, decisive confrontation that would bring long overdue justice. I strategically arranged a mediated confrontation at a neutral professional conference room in a reputable downtown law firm, my steadfast lawyer by my side like a guardian, her briefcase brimming with meticulously organized files that spelled doom for the opposition. Derek arrived looking utterly disheveled, his once immaculate suit wrinkled, tie askew, arrogance visibly cracking under the cumulative pressure, but still clinging to defiance with a forced sneer. We methodically laid out the overwhelming mountain of evidence before him on the polished mahogany table, binders as thick as old encyclopedias, overflowing with recordings of his escalating threats, annotated photos of tampered supplies, compiled screenshots of the fake review campaigns, stamped court filings from prior skirmishes, chilling intimidation footage from the alley, and now the crowning piece, the damning vandalism video projected crisply onto a large screen mounted on the wall. At first, he denied everything with his characteristic hysteria, pounding the table so hard that water glasses rattled. "This is all a elaborate setup. You're framing me with doctored evidence, you sneaky bastard." But as the incriminating video played out in real time, his face unmistakably clear under the parking lot lights, voice unmistakably his own issuing the orders, the facade shattered completely. With a discreet hidden recorder running, he broke down into sobs, confessing not just to the series of targeted attacks against me, but to a web of broader systemic crimes that stunned even my lawyer. I had to stay on top, no matter the cost. It was a recorded avalanche of revelations, his long-hidden frauds unraveling like a single pulled thread that collapsed the entire tapestry of his operation. We turned over the entire dossier to the authorities without hesitation, handing it to federal environmental investigators for the sourcing violations, the IRS for the intricate tax dodges, and local police for the vandalism and harassment charges. Derek's once mighty business empire was shuttered within mere weeks, assets frozen and seized by court order, crippling fines levied that bankrupted him, criminal charges culminating in a plea deal for probation, substantial community service, and restitution payments. His tarnished reputation spread like wildfire through industry circles, ensuring no comeback. Meanwhile, my humble shop not only survived, but thrived exponentially. Loyal clients returned in droves, bolstered by sympathetic media coverage that praised my eco-innovations, ethical practices, and unyielding resilience, propelling sales to unprecedented record highs. I even expanded further, hiring young apprentices to mentor and pass on the timeless craft of woodworking, turning my ordeal into a platform for positive change. If you enjoyed this narrative of resilience, please subscribe now and hit that like button to help spread these stories.